Hey guys, it's me, Darkstar. I haven't done one of these in a while, so I finally got some good questions on the Ask Questions thread, and I figured I would do one. First, a few things. I got a new webcam. It's 1080p, and it's not as shitty as my old one. My old one was from like 2006, so now you can see my ugly face in high quality. Second point, XenoBot updates. We haven't seen a lot of new features lately. And that's partly because I've been really busy and partly because I've been busier. I have a few new things I want to roll out soon. Rune Shooter will come sometime early 2014. A few other things to release for XenoBot 4.0, I'm thinking. We'll see how that goes. Um, and then one of the reasons I've been so busy, and only a few of the moderators know this, I don't think any of you guys know it, is I'm now writing a book. I have a book deal with the No Starch Press, which is a publishing company for a bunch of technology type books. They call themselves the best in hacker entertainment. Uh, let's see. Didn't write this one. They wrote this book. Well, they published it. They didn't write it. They published this book. This one of my personal favorites. This one. Two more I have over on my shelf, and then I have two at work by them. The two on my shelf are the IDA Pro book, or IDA Pro book, and the one I have at work is Practical Perl Scripts, and I have another one I can't remember. Anyways, that's irrelevant. That's just showing the kind of material they put out. I spoke at DerbyCon on process manipulation. It's mostly stuff I picked up when I was game hacking, but a lot of the stuff alludes to methods used by malware developers and such. So I gave a talk on that, and I stopped by their book booth after my talk, and the person running the booth saw the speaker badge and was like, yo, what did you speak on? And I told him what I talked about and how I learned it. He was like, that was really interesting. You should write a book on that. And he hands me a business card. And then we talk bullshit about some other stuff. I buy a few books. And before I walk away, he's like, yo, seriously, think about writing a book on that. So I walk away thinking, okay, this guy was just the book booth guy, right? So I Google the name on the card, and it's the founder of the publishing company. So I put together an outline, um, put together a synopsis and stuff, whatever, and I sent it to him for a book on game hacking, and they were like, sure, let's do it. So I signed the contract at the end of October, and I have a deadline of November 1st, 2014 for a book on game hacking. It'll cover everything from learning cheat engine to understanding Oli debugger to memory editing to hooking, all of the stuff you need. It requires at least adept coding skills is what I'm aiming for. The target audience will be coders, but it will go into the depths of game hacking, and anyone who takes a lesson seriously and learns what the book has would be able to make something as powerful as a XenoBot. So that's why I've been busy lately. But that aside, I got some good questions for once on the thread. This guy, Kyan Jensen, he actually hasn't been active since he asked this question back in July, but it wasn't a good enough question for me to do a vlog about. How did I integrate the bot with the Tibia client is his question, and the answer to that is a lot of time and effort. All of the XenoBot user interface that you see is custom coded by me. The graphics, the mouse handling, the keyboard handling, everything is coded. I have it abstracted out in like this object-oriented GUI framework where I use Kipsoft's drawing functions, which I've located within their client, and then I call those to draw the different things I need. There's a print skin function which draws the different skin elements like buttons and scroll bars and borders and fancy shit. There's a print text which obviously prints text in different ways. There's a print rect, which will just print a square or a rectangle in the color you specify. And there's print item, which will print items. I believe that's all I use. There might be a few other small ones I use. And then I have multiple hooks. I have a hook on the FPS layer. When you hit Alt and F8 and you see that FPS text top left of the screen, I have a hook on that, which is the topmost graphics layer. And that's where I do my drawing initially. That's where I draw any GUI that is over the top of dialogue, over the top of the right-click menus, anything that's topmost. Anything that would go over the top of any open windows or anything like that is drawn there. And then I hook a somewhat random, I mean it's the same one every Tibia update, but a somewhat random spot in the middle of their graphics engine where it's drawing, right after it draws the map, right after it draws the UI, but before it draws the dialogues and the context menus. And that's where I will draw the HUD. That's where I'll draw things like the support window or the tools window over on the right side. Those things that'll be underneath context menus and underneath dialogues, that's where I draw those. And then I have a drawing hook on like creature names when creature names are drawn, so I can draw stuff next to them, draw the mana bar and stuff like that. And then of course I have a subclass on the window proc to handle mouse clicks, keystrokes, whatever, and I just kind of tied that all together. That's really the bulk of XenoBot. Most of XenoBot, I wouldn't say most, but most of the research and time that I put into XenoBot initially was put into the user interface, and it's not hard to maintain anymore now that it's made, but it's very hard to do in the first place because I had to reverse engineer their GUI structure with some help from people on TP forums and whatnot, because I need to know like where containers are. Like when you see the tool windows on the right, the tools window, I just open a ghost container with no item slots right there, and I make sure when it's closed it doesn't get sent to the server, and if something from the server tries to replace it, gets replaced or whatever. But I just open a ghost container window and then I traverse their GUI structure and find that window's location, and then I draw over the top of it. There's a way to actually create GUI elements using Tibia's GUI elements to where I don't have to go through all that, and that's what I was doing initially. It's pretty easy, and I've seen some people do some pretty crazy stuff with it. The problem with that is it's limited. I wouldn't be able to have checkboxes on the buttons I make. I wouldn't be able to have checkboxes on the context menus. I wouldn't be able to show items next to text boxes, which is why I went with my way. But yeah, I needed to reverse engineer their GUI structure. Another thing I had to reverse engineer was I needed to figure out how to find which console window is currently open. Because like when you open the settings window and it's down in the console tabs with your chat tabs, that's really just a blank chat window. I'm waiting till that's open. I'm blocking any text being sent from it, and then I'm drawing over the top of it. It's ghetto, but it obviously works. It was the easiest way to do it. But yeah, that's basically how I achieved that. That's probably the longest question to answer. Okay. So, have you ever been close to a legitimate defeat with XenoBot? Where have you almost given up? Why am I playing with toenail clippers? When we were getting DDoSed and the site was knocked down, I can pull that up really quick. The actual graph for that back in April and March, I think it was. So let me get this open. So if you look at the user graph, starting in March, around March 17th, we started grabbing DDoS, and it was from a kid who was being a little bitch on Solera, didn't like me, and then a few other people joined in. I hear it was people from iBot. I have suspicion that it was also Tibia Tunnel, just because Many people using Tibia Tunnel were getting blocked by Cloudflare for being attackers, and it seemed to be only people using Tibia Tunnel, so I have a suspicion they were in on it, but I can't confirm. So anyway, so we went offline for about 2 days, and it took a long time to recover back to where we were if you look at the graph right here. And that was a really hard time. Hosting fees went up literally over 1,000%. I was paying $10 a month for some simple hosting that got the job done. And then when that happened, I switched to a dedicated server. No, I switched to a VPS with Cloudflare, which bumped it up to $40 a month. That didn't work. I switched to a DDoS protected dedicated server from Liquid Web, and they had shitty support, and that kept getting knocked down. They kept null routing my IP address because too much traffic, so that didn't work. And then I switched to a provider which I will not mention. That worked for a while because I was hiding my IP through Cloudflare, but the problem with that was the attackers started getting my IP through the email address headers, so I had to buy a secondary VPS. And so now all of the emails that XenoBot.net sends, like registration emails, you got a private message emails, stuff like that, those get bumped through a VPS, strips the IP address from the XenoBot server, and then resends them. So the only thing that the attackers can DDoS is the VPS now. So that fixed it, but that whole week or two, like, I didn't sleep. It was my normal job, and then fighting this DDoS shit, doing it during my normal job, then staying late to get my shit done. And I mean, I wouldn't have given up because that's not the kind of person I am. But if they kept doing what they were doing and I didn't know how to fight back, then I would have been fucked. It's not so much that they were outplaying me or outsmarting me either. It's just that I made the mistake of not being initially prepared for this. I had bad hosting, I had bad security, and then it was never a problem for 2 or 3 years, and then once I pissed someone off, it was a huge problem. Now that I've adapted, now it'd be a lot harder for someone to make that initial impact. Oh, I skipped one from ShortyBoy1990. Actually just answered his second question. Do you see Kipsoft as an enemy? I don't. A lot of good things in my life have come out of Tibia. That's weird to say. If I never started Tibia, I would have never got into OT server, so I probably wouldn't have started coding. Or I would have started coding late in my life, and I can guarantee I wouldn't be where I am right now. I wouldn't have met my girlfriend, a girl I've had a thing for a very long time. I met on Tibia, 7 years ago, and we recently started dating. We recently realized, hey, we can fly back and forth now, and we have money, so whatever. So there's that. There's the coding. They obviously won't feel the same. XenoBot, while it's an enemy to them, I did what... It was an open niche. The game was already fucked. There were already so many bots, so it's not like I killed the economy. I prolonged the damage, yeah, but if I didn't do it, someone else would. Breadbot, already doing it. So they definitely see me as an enemy, and I don't blame them. I know what I do is not favorable by them, but I don't. As a rival, yeah. When they implement any new protection measures, or if they tried to implement detection measures, they would be doing it because I'm their enemy, and I would be evading it because it's fun, it's a challenge, and it's my business. Most of my income does come from XenoBot currently, and I wouldn't stop that unless they tried their hardest and were able to outplay me. But like I said, most of my income, my girlfriend, my coding skills in general are all based around Tibia. So I really have to thank them, and I've had a shitty way of doing that thus far. Do you have any ideas on how to let my girlfriend give me more Tibia time? I don't play Tibia anymore. Um, my girlfriend gives me a lot of League of Legends time because she plays it with me, so maybe teach her how to play Tibia. Does your real job, if any, involve software coding for programs? Does this help you work on XenoBot? At work, I do high volume data analysis. Um, I apply statistical models to hospital data, um, phone data, mailing data, standardized addresses, standardized names, suppress mailing lists, suppress phone lists. The company I work for, their business is based around marketing data. So I do a lot of stuff there. It's not hard or challenging whatsoever. The algorithms I write are really trivial. All of the code I write at work is in Lua or Perl, mostly Lua, because when I got there, I didn't like the systems they had in place. So I wrote my own system that used Lua to do file processing. And about a year after that, the president of the company, he took notice of how powerful Lua was, and his old system wasn't cutting it for the new crazy stuff we're doing. So he implemented his own system with Lua, which is great. So if I'm not coding in my Lua system, I'm using his. So that's nice because I've been using Lua since, I was 13. That's the first language. 12 or 13, that's the first language I started in. So yeah, it helps my Lua skills, but it's nothing similar to what I do with XenoBot. How old was I when I realized that I wanted to be or was good at coding software? Started writing Lua when I was 12 or 13. I think about 12 for OT servers. And I was quickly writing scripts where people would say, I haven't found this script yet, or I can't get this to work. And I found myself making it work. My coding wasn't the best, but I could always make something work. I remember a specific instance before Tolaturin made the Forgotten server. He was a big douchebag if you never got to know him. Before he made the Forgotten server, and he was still one of the devs on OT serve, before he made OT land right before, he made like a flying carpet script that would fly around the map, and he was trying to sell it to people. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna make this, and mine was nowhere near as clean as his, but it worked just as well. And I made a flying carpet script, and I released it for free, and he got pretty mad, which was funny. But so I realized I had a knack for doing stuff like that. Kept doing that for a while. I didn't delve into OT Surf Dev because C++ was too complicated for my young mind. When I was about 14, I started in VB6, and Joe Bingham, who is one of our admins, I saw by TB forums, and I saw he did a lot of good work. And I said, he made a lot of mini bots and stuff, and I said, dude, I want to learn to do this. Can you help me? And he sent me a folder of open source, well, not open source, it was closed source, it was private code, private work, but he sent me his folder of all of his bots, all of his code, and he said, check it out, learn from it. And it would have taken me a lot longer to learn if he hadn't have done that. I'm not sure if XenoBot would be what it is, so I owe a lot to him. But started in VB6, started using that. Started making small bots. I probably made like 5 or 10 different bots in VB6 that sucked. Moved on to VB.net, and I made Tugbot, which some of you are familiar with, and it was a good bot for my skill level at the time. But I started realizing I was doing more and more in the C++ injected library, and then communicating over a pipe back to the bot, and it was messy just to interop between the Visual Basic and the C++. And I finally said, after only minimally touching C++ for small OT serve modifications, I finally said I need to learn this better, and I need to make a bot in this. So I made Tugbot++. And TugBot++ was essentially the beginning of the XenoBot GUI. It had a few of the things XenoBot has with the UI, nowhere near as nice. It had like the tabs in the console and basic buttons and checkboxes. That was it. No text boxes, no list boxes. And it didn't do anything. It was just, I'm going to make TugBot++ for all the users of Tug, and it's going to be awesome. And I worked on the GUI really hard and didn't really do anything. And then I abandoned it for a few months. And I'm 16 at this point, so I've been coding for like 3 years. I abandoned it for a few months. Then by the time I'm 17, I throw up the TugBot++ code on one screen, open a new project called XenoBot on my other screen, and I decide I'm going to make XenoBot. It's going to rival all of these other bots. It's not going to be a part of this Tug. I can get my own forum. I can invest my money in hosting. I can do whatever. And I just started copying the code over. I got rid of the sloppiness, I classed it out, I made it clean, and that was the base for XenoBot. And coding XenoBot is where most of my learning with reverse engineering happened. I had a strong grasp of basic programming concepts, but XenoBot has not only been a product, but a huge learning experience. So I guess I kind of rambled off, but that answers that question. I realized I was good when I was about 12, coding in Lua. But XenoBot is really what set it in stone for me, personally. And, I mean, I made it when I was 17, released it. It was out for over a year until I was almost 19 is when it started making money. It only had like 20 users up until like December 28th of 2011. And then it just took off when NeoBot said they were done. So that was interesting. Because December 28th of 2010, no, December 18th of 2010 is when the forums were released. And that year and 10 days, only 20 users. Then it exploded that day. It didn't even have a cave bot. I started rolling out the cave bot and everything. So yeah, XenoBot was a huge learning experience for me. And it was what got me into my career, because it is what was on my resume when I got my job. It's what I showed the president of the company when he said, you're 19 years old walking into my company and you want a job. Show me that you're worth it. And I said, here's a code for a piece of software that I wrote that has a couple thousand users. Open any file you want, find the most complex function you want, and then ask me how it works and I'll tell you. And that's what he did. And then he was like, look, you just showed me more than any person with a college degree can show me with that piece of paper. So, and he offered me a job. So yeah, that's when I realized that's how I got to where I am. That's all of the questions. This ran a bit longer than I thought. 23 minutes. Holy shit. I'll be surprised if any of you guys actually watch this far. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap it up. I'll do one of these again soon if you guys give me stuff to talk about. Apparently you guys like listening to me talk, even though I think I'm boring. Thanks. See ya.